And finally, it's time to spare a thought for all those in charge out there, the top bods, the chiefs, the big bosses. Leadership from small businesses to large multinationals requires a broad set of skills and an infinite array of potential headaches. So what does it take to be a truly successful business leader? And does it matter if your employees actually like you? For more, I'm joined by psychotherapist and leadership coach Nick Kinley. Nick, is it useful for a boss to be liked? Is that good business?
Well, for some of them it is, yes. So there are some leaders who absolutely need to be liked. It's important for their self-esteem, their confidence, and their motivation. They thrive off it, and if they don't feel liked, they become less energized and less confident. And that inevitably will affect their decision-making and ultimately performance as well. For others, being liked is less important. But even for them, even if they don't care whether they're liked, it's really critical that they're not disliked. Because if they're disliked, then the motivation and performance of their team fall. So leaders don't always need to be liked, but they certainly need to not be disliked.
Today is International Bosses Day. It's a day where people are meant to reflect on their bosses and thank them for all their hard work if they want to. A daughter actually came up with this idea for her boss, who happened to be her father, and now this has become a Hallmark Cards moment for Happy Boss Day. Is there something in an employee's own family history that influences how they then see the boss? Does it remind them of their parents, for example?
Yeah. So most people tend to have a more or less consistent approach with all authority figures. So the degree to which they trust people in authority or are anxious to please them. And those attitudes are forged and founded in their earliest relationships. And that typically means with their parents. So, for example, children who grow up with very dominating, strict or critical parents tend to become more obedient as adults, while children who experience a high amount of anger or resentment towards their parents tend to grow into adults who are less trusting of authority figures. And once these attitudes are set, they tend to stay set. So most of us rebel a bit in teenage years, we become a little less conforming in later years, but other than that, our attitudes, authority don't tend to change.
That's
much.
tough, isn't it? It's not something that the bosses themselves can control. And the bosses have to pick a leadership style. And is the boss themselves affected by their childhood as to how they lead?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all know that our childhood helps shape the adults we become. But we tend to underestimate just how much our early experience shapes us and just how much these experiences continue to affect how we behave today and act as a leader. The reason is just simple biology, the fact that the neural pathways formed by our earliest experiences are the foundations upon which all later pathways are formed. And as a leader, it can affect us in three key ways. So it can affect what we focus on. So whether we focus more on risk or reward, whether we prefer familiar solutions or new ideas, and even the types of people we prefer to consult with and listen to. The second thing is our emotionality and our ability to maintain our composure. So our tendency to feel anxiety, whether we experience positive or negative emotions more, and whether we tend to internalize or externalize our emotions.
Okay, Nick, well, I wanted to ask you very briefly whether you're your own boss and whether that's the secret to happiness.
Yeah, so I think if you can be your own boss and your own follower, yeah. But,
that was it. We're out of time,
most
Nick.
People,
but thank you for that. See you soon.